everybody. So glad to have you here. Thank you so very much for joining us. I'm Dr. Margo Jacquot. I'm a clinical psychologist in the Chicagoland area. I also have worked in addictions for a long time, which will matter today in just a moment. You'll figure out why. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I think for all of us, whether you are a parent, whether you have any, really pretty much anybody in your life that you have compassion for and you want to help. We're going to talk today about where are the limits around helping and when does it become something called enabling. And enabling is probably a term that's familiar to some of you. It means different things to different people. I'm going to let our expert today tell you what that is. So let me introduce our wonderful guest today. We have Amber Hollingsworth, who is an addiction specialist. She's been working with individuals and families struggling with addiction since 2004, so a couple of decades in there, and has worked as an inpatient counselor and at every level of outpatient care. She's the owner and founder of Hope for Families Recovery Consultants, and we'll have all that information in our show notes today. But Amber Hollingsworth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Margaret. I'm excited to be talking to another addictions counselor, or I don't
Right?
know, would it be called counselor or
Yeah,
specialist? I don't know.
in Illinois, we have a certification board.
Uh,
So I'm a psychologist, that's my license, but then
Okay.
I have a certification in addictions counseling that
Okay. I
sharing
see.
with Amber I got in the 1980s. We'll just leave it there. So it's been a minute. I worked on an addictions unit and it is a whole skill set. So, folks, if you're listening to this, people will think, well, I'll just go find a therapist or I'll find a counselor. And not everybody has the same skill set. And in the field of addictions, you don't always need a licensed professional either. So you can find people who are very skilled, who have a lot of experience, and they might have some kind of certification or lived experience that counts in the addictions world. So let's jump on in. So, as I said in the beginning, as the expert, I'm going to let you define what enabling means, and then we can
Okay.
talk about the difference and the similarity between enabling and helping.
Okay. Well, I think a good place to start, Margaret, is let's talk about the difference because there's a little bit of a definition in there that I think might help us. So, a lot of people ask me this question, and here's the difference. When you help someone, you always feel good about it. Helping makes you feel good as a person, right? I like to tell this story. This is how ridiculous it is to point. Like I was outside walking in my neighborhood, and there had been a rain right before I'd walked or something. It was in the morning, and there was this little tiny worm, and it was caught under this little bitty stick. And I like moved the stick off of this worm, and then I was like, oh, I helped this worm. I felt good about myself. It's just from
See?
that tiny little thing. So that's what when I say when you help someone, you leave with a good feeling. When you have fallen into enabling, you tend to leave feeling not good. Usually resentful, maybe guilty, maybe angry, because when you're enabling, it's almost like you're helping and you felt like you had to. But
Mm,
maybe you didn't really want to, or you felt like you had to because you're walking on eggshells, you don't want them to blow up, or something bad was going to happen, or you kind
mm,
of feel forced into it, or you've had to do it so many times. The first few times you didn't mind helping, and now it's like past that. But you
mm,
leave with like a not great feeling. And
mm,
that to me is the difference. And how do you
mm,
know which category that you're in?
Okay, so there might be a feeling of obligation, like I had to do this. It wasn't because I wanted to. You wanted to help the worm, right?
Right.
You might want to open a door for somebody. You might want to, whatever it is.
Let's say you have a coworker whose child is sick and you offer to cover for them and you feel good because you help them. But like let's say that
Mm,
same coworker does this, once a week, every week.
mm,
And
mm,
now you don't really feel good about it, like you feel resentful about it or you some kind of way about it that's not good. And that's
mm,
kind of how you know you've slid over into the enabling category.
Okay, right. So it might be repetitive with somebody. There are people who have family members who have chronic medical conditions. But on average, your coworker having a sick kid, unless they're, you know, the mother of 20, they probably don't have a sick kid every week. You
Mm-hmm.
start to feel a little taken advantage of, like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
and am I enabling them to call off sick once a week without consequences because I just
Right.
cover for them? Am I
Right.
assisting them to do something that's not great? I don't feel good about it. I don't want to help that behavior. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing you're
Yeah, you
talking
might feel taken advantage of. Like even if you think your coworker's child really is sick once a week, you're still probably going to get kind of frustrated
about? Mm-hmm.
that it's so frequent. And you're going to feel like that coworker needs to find a plan on how to, deal with this or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Right.
And that
Right. It's
goes in
probably
lots
better
of
than you.
categories: addiction recovery, mental health things. It can be at work, it can be with your family, with other issues. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, these are different words, but you were saying sometimes people engage in this behavior because they want to keep the peace. It's not
Hmm.
because they wanted to do it, but they didn't want a negative reaction from the other person.
Right. And
Hmm.
people that tend to, consider themselves maybe more of a people pleaser a little bit, or maybe a little conflict avoidant, they're probably more prone to enabling because of that very thing of I don't either want someone to be upset with me, or I don't want to cause someone else a hardship, or I know if I say no, they're going to make a big stink about it, and I don't want to deal with the fallout of that.
Hmm. Right. So, in order to keep the peace, in order to keep things from blowing up, and sometimes don't you think people relieve their anxiety by just doing what the other person wants for them?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It can feel like the path of least resistance. It can feel like, when it comes to addiction recovery, it can feel like a way of having some control over the situation or trying to keep something under control. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can you describe that a little more? So, in a family where there's drug or alcohol abuse or even addiction, what does enabling look like? How would I know?
Yeah.
Because I'm just doing my thing. I'm trying to keep everything moving. I'm just trying to keep everybody moving forward. How would I know?
Well, most people, especially in addiction recovery, they think about enabling, they think about giving someone money, paying someone's bills, maybe even like letting them live with them. Those are a lot of times it's like I'm financially keeping this person afloat. That's what we think about when we think about enabling. And that is enabling. But and this is different. You don't hear a lot of addiction counselors say this, but I there's a bigger form of enabling that I really
Mm,
like to address with family members particularly. And that the most enabling thing you can do is what I call play the bad guy role. And here's why.
mm,
You hear people say, well, if you give them $20 and they go out and use and something bad happens, that's going to be on your heart. And I'm like, first of all, no. Okay. Like, if you go out and that happens and something happens to them, that's because of addiction, not because of you. So let yourself let go of that guilt. And secondly, you're not going to make or break someone's addiction with $20. You're just not, right? But here's what will happen. If you stand in front of the door and literally like bar them, or you like pull all the money out of their checking account, or you have a big screaming fight with them, or you say, I'm going to call your mother, and you do any of these things to try to keep it from happening, now you're playing the villain in the story. And the thing about addiction is, addiction lives on resentment and self pity. It's
mm,
like the emotional currency an addict or an alcoholic needs in order to keep making bad decisions. Because it works like this: I'm resentful about something happened in my life. I feel sorry for myself. I give myself an excuse to make a bad decision.
mm,
And they'll use that little episode you had for the next 20 years. They'll throw it in your face. They'll remind you of how controlling you are. And so it's like, okay, you gave them $20. Not that I'm saying you should give them money, but I'm just saying like that is mild in comparison to what is going to happen as far as enabling, because now the person, they think back on that, they wallow in the self-pity, I can't believe, and blah, 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 and feel sorry for myself. And feeling sorry for yourself usually leads to bad decision making. And when someone has an addiction, that bad decision making is usually, you know, continuing in that addiction.
mm,
So
mm,
that's the big daddy that I think about, is playing the villain. And
mm,
addiction wants you to be the villain. It'll like fish hook you into an argument.
mm. Right. Addiction often needs a villain.
It needs a villain, has to have a villain. Because
Mhm.
as long as there's a villain, that's how people stay in denial. As long as there's a villain, I don't have to look at what I'm doing because I stay preoccupied with this other person. Now, for most people who have addictions, there's like multiple, but there's like one primary, and it's
Mhm.
usually the spouse or the parent, or it's like the person that lives with them or that's closest. And the reason is because you, as the person that's closest to them, you see what's really going on. And maybe they're holding it together for the rest of the world, and maybe everybody else thinks they're fine, but you see all the behind the scenes. So you're naturally, because you're seeing that, if you're the person close to them, you're aware of the problem. Your alarms are going off, and you're trying to get this person's attention, and you're trying to get this person to change, and you're trying to get them out of denial, and all of that, which is a totally valid, normal human feeling, but it sucks you into the bad guy role.
Mm. So, how would I, if I was living in a family where this was happening and I
Hmm.
happened to be that person,
Hmm.
how can I avoid that?
It is very difficult because most of the time people are already in that role. So it's almost like not even how to avoid it. By the time you come to a podcast like this, or you find me on YouTube or something, like, you're already in it. So it's like, how do I get out of it?
Hmm.
The first thing you do is you tell the person, you say, you know what, I've been doing some thinking about this, or I saw my counselor, whatever you want to say. And then you say, I've not handled this very well. I've not had good boundaries with this. I've tried to control it, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to try to do better. So by announcing it, you get their attention, and immediately they're looking at you different, and they're like, yeah, that's what I've been saying. But you got their attention,
I
right?
told you you were wrong.
You can
Right.
quietly change in the background, but the problem with doing that is once someone sees you a certain way, they filter you that way. And they
Mhm.
may not pick up on these changes, or they might pick up on them, but it'll be very slow and subtle. When if you say this and then the changes are happening behind the scenes, they're like, wow, she or he really is changing. Like, they are being different, right? So that to me is the quickest way, is just to acknowledge that you've been the bad guy. Not to say I've been enabling you, but you just say, I have not been helpful with this, right? And I've gotten out of my lane a few times, and I shouldn't have done that because I know that's not helpful for you. I'm going to do better.
Mm. I love that, right? Because the instinct is I'm going to try to control the situation. I'm going to clamp down, or I'm going to give them what they're asking for because maybe that'll help. I mean, people who are in that bad guy role are
Right.
trying to be helpful, but to your point, they're not. So they ought to announce it. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
recognize it and then announce it to the person.
Yes. And the thing of
I'm
it is, like, even if you're like, maybe you're like, you're not the bad guy in a traditional sense of you're yelling or screaming or trying to control. But what happens is, if you enable too much, you will eventually feel resentful, which will
Mhm.
lead you to feel sorry for yourself, which will lead you to making a bad decision on how to interact with this person, just like it leads them to
Mhm.
a bad decision. Then you're going to lose it because you've taken it too many times, you've
Mhm.
overhelped, you've put yourself in a bad position, you've not got your own needs met, and eventually you're going to either say something ugly, or you're going to be passive aggressive with the person, or you're going to like shut down and not even speak to them. And now you're in the bad guy role, even though and that's the hard part, because they're like, what do you mean I'm the bad guy? I'm the one taking up all the responsibilities, paying the bills, watching the kids, like paying call, like, and it's just 10 times even more maddening that you're seen as the bad guy when you're the one holding all the strings together. Ah, so frustrating.
It's yeah, you can appreciate. I mean, you hear this from people. It's so frustrating, right? To be the villain in the story when you
Right.
have been just bending yourself into a pretzel,
Yeah.
trying to keep it all together and really be helpful and keep everybody moving.
Right.
So, right, so I should announce it then, and I should say, okay, so I haven't been doing this in the way that really is probably most helpful. I'm going to I'm sorry, I'm going to try to do something differently. Then what do I do?
Right. Oh, let me just throw this, because I thought of it as you were saying that, Mario. It's a little phrase that will really get their attention, is you'll say, I haven't had good boundaries, or I've crossed your boundaries. Because
Oh,
most of the time, the family member, they're really fixated on how this other person is a boundary crosser, but you don't
yeah.
realize it. But this thing has sucked you in, and you're crossing boundaries too. You're getting out of your lane. And it's natural. It happens to all of us. I don't want you to feel guilty about it. I just want you to know it. And they're going to resonate with that. They're going to be like, yeah, you have. You're really going to like pay attention. Like
Mm,
you would if they said that to you. You'd be like, finally. Oh my gosh, 20 years you finally said it. It's going to get their attention when you say
mm.
that.
So that's part of it. It's not just saying it, it's not screaming it at them. It's not just in a moment of anger. You are saying, I have had bad boundaries here. My boundaries haven't been great. I need to do better. I need to do this differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're announcing that as your intention and you're not inviting somebody to turn on you.
Right. And you're doing it from a place of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
During an argument is probably not the best place to do it. And it doesn't have to be a huge, long conversation. Don't say we
Mm-hmm.
sit down, we need to talk. In fact, if you're in the car, you're not even looking at each other, even better. And it needs to be very short. I don't want you to go into it too long because this is usually a really highly sensitive topic because it's usually going on. There's been a lot of back and forth. And you don't want to dig in there too much. You just want
Mm-hmm.
to say that and then move on and plant a seed. And you don't even have to really wait for a response. But when you do that, something's going to shift in their mind.
Mm. Okay. So I say it and then I just close my mouth and move on
And move
or
on.
change the subject or
Change the
whatever the
subject.
case may
Right.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, move on. Right.
hmm
Don't say, did you hear me? Do you understand what I said? Right. You
Because
just
they
want to
might
say,
say, yeah, you have, and you did this and you did that, and you don't want that either.
right.
If they do, you can say, you're right, you're right. I know, I'm going to do better on that. But if you just
Mhm.
kind of say it, I call it the leave it on the coffee table method. You just kind of put it out there and then
Mhm.
just look at it if you want to and then move on.
Mhm.
Very quick.
Yep.
Yeah,
And the point of doing that isn't to say, I've been bad, I've done something wrong, because boy, that'll make you mad if you're that person.
right,
But it's to plant the seed in the mind of the person who is using drugs or alcohol or who is the addict. You're planting that seed, and you can't plant a seed. It's if they're going to deflect it. And if you're angry, they're going to try to deflect it. So this is
right.
just a way to
And
seed
the
the
seed you're
information.
trying to plant here, Margo, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get out of the way so that they can see their problem. And once they see their problem, we can talk more too about motivating them to fix it. They'll figure out how to fix it. So what you're trying to
Mm.
do is you're trying to get out of the villain role because that is enabling.
Mm.
Right. And so this is just a quick way to get their attention for them to see that you're moving out of the villain role. And the reason I know this is because from 20 years of dealing with people who have drug and alcohol problems, and almost all of them come to see me, like forced into it by someone they care about or legally or otherwise or whatever. It's all they'll talk to me about. So from the addiction counselor perspective, as long as the family member's doing this, I'm not going to get this person to talk. So you might as well not even spend your time and your money forcing them in to see a counselor,
Mhm. That's right.
especially a counselor that may not understand this dynamic.
Hmm.
Because I can't get them to work on them because all they're going to tell me about is how their wife or their mom or their sister or their husband, and they're unfair and they're critical and they think everything's because of my drinking and nothing I ever do is going to, this all they are going to talk about as long as that's going on. That's all
Mm,
they can think about.
exactly. That is a great nugget, right? So the person may feel like who's the enabler or the person who's in
Mm-hmm.
the villain role, they may not know what else to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're doing what they know how to do, but then it
Yes.
feeds the victim mentality, the being victimized mentality in the
Mm-hmm.
person with the drug or alcohol problem.
Yes.
'Cause then I can focus on all the ways that you have wronged me and said the wrong thing and done the wrong thing. Right. So if I take myself out of that role and say, okay, I've had poor boundaries here. My boundaries haven't been good. I need to do something differently. I'm really sorry. And we're going to try something different.
Right.
And if you
Yeah.
can't say you're sorry, that's okay too, I would imagine. But then, so now they've planted the seed.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? What do I do then with my rage, with the fact that they're going to continue to drink and use drugs? What
Yeah.
do I do next?
This is going to sound crazy, especially coming from a mental health professional. I'm going to say you're going to bite your lip and you're going to hold it in for a minute. I'm just telling you
Okay.
to do it. You don't have to feel it. Just do it because it works. I always say, I'm not here to tell you what's fair. I'm here to tell you what works. This works.
Mm,
Right.
okay.
Eventually, it's going to get easier because what's going to happen is this person is going to stop their addiction immediately when you say that. But they will pretty quickly, especially if you really follow this up with some behavior changes, they'll start responding to you very differently and it'll be
Mm,
much easier, right? Their
right.
attitude towards you is going to change. And then
Okay.
it's easier to stay out of that bad guy role. So it's at first you're just holding it in, you just cramming it in because Amber said to or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Whatever you got to do, just keep it in there. It's like sometimes in mental health we say behavior before feeling. This is a behavior before feeling.
There's a behavior before feeling. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And ultimately, what you're trying to do is this like, most of the time when your loved one, you care about them, like maybe this is your kid and you love them more than anyone else on the planet, right? You're watching them, essentially, it's like watching them run in front of a train, right? So your natural instinct is to want to grab them and say, "Stop! What are you doing? You're going to kill yourself," or you're ruining your life and mine too. And you're getting their attention. But what's happening when you do that is, again, you're in the bad guy role. While you're doing that, you're probably also trying to help them not burn a bridge that can't be undone, like trying to make sure they don't get expelled from school, trying to make sure they don't lose their job, trying to make sure they don't get the DUI, right? And so what you're doing is you're creating like a really, like if you're trying to get someone out of denial, this is the worst thing to do because you're fixing everything in the environment. And all they see is that they have a problem, and that problem is you because you're naggy and mean and critical or whatever. And so you're creating this false perception, right? Well, I'm still working. I'm still going to school. My grades are fine, right? I'm taking care of my kids. They're not going to realize that you're holding all those pieces up. They're just going to realize that you're mean to them or you think negatively of them or whatever they think. And now you've got exactly the wrong point of view from this person. What you want to do is you want to let, as much as possible, we can't do this every time, but you want to let as many of the real world consequences fall as you can tolerate. And inside the context of relationship, you want to have empathy for the person because empathy activates the learning center in someone's brain. And so it's like, I feel this uncomfortableness associated with what I did or what I'm doing. And now you're having empathy. Now we got some learning happening. Now we're going to get into someone. They may not say, okay, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to go to meetings. I'm never going to use again. But they'll be like, I need to cut this back. I need to do something different. And then they'll start trial and erroring it. I call it bargaining, trying some things to solve this problem. This is the role. And this is what counselors and psychologists do. This is what we do that works, right? We play this role because we can't fix anything outside anyway. All we can do is be your listening ear, be the person and help you make a decision, right? And that's why I say it works and it's really effective. But you got to reverse it. Let the world be the bad guy and you be the good guy as much as possible.
That's beautiful. I love that perspective, Amber. That's a great way to think about it, folks. So, those of you who might be living this, you can see all you've tried, all you've done, all you have worked toward to try to prevent or to correct or control. And you know what? To your point, Amber, it is 100% understandable, right? You see this person careening towards something that is terrifying,
right?
Ruining their lives, and it is probably ruining yours as well. And we think being helpful is the way to go. Right. I'm glad you said allow them to experience as many natural consequences as you can. Some parents cannot put their kids out on the street.
And that's okay. And I'm not a big one to tell anybody to ever put anybody on the street. And here's why. Well, let me say this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying you shouldn't do it if you're doing it because you think that's what they need. They will almost certainly get worse. Because now you have become the ace card villain, like the mega villain of all time villains, right? I can't believe you did that to your own daughter. Now you're the mega villain, right? And now they're really in resentment and self-pity, and their use is just going to go out of control. I can almost guarantee it for you. It's not going to get better. A lot of people say, well, you're enabling and you got to kick them out and they got to hit a bottom. That's a myth. That's not true. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Good reasons to do it is because you can't take it anymore or because it's unsafe for you or you feel like you can't even sleep without hiding your wallet under your pillow at night, right? If you're doing it for you, that's a good reason to do it. If you're doing it because you think it's going to be a wake-up call for them, I don't think that usually works.
No, and unfortunately, what cream rises to the top, I don't know, stones stink to the bottom. So, right, if somebody goes out and they're on the street, if that's what you need to do for you, to your point, then that's what you need to do for you.
Yes.
And the survival of the parent, the partner, whomever.
Maybe there's other children in the house or something, right? And right.
That's critical.
Hmm.
And to your point, they will probably find somebody else who's in a similar situation and they'll just connect up with
Right.
them and perpetuate. So it can't be the attempted solution to the problem. So
Right. Yeah.
now, what do I do with sitting back and watching the person I love careen out of control? Now, what do I do?
So at first, it probably will get a little worse. But if you're not playing the villain, they'll start figuring out that they got to do something. And so then they'll start on this bargaining phase, is what I call it. And it's basically all these attempts to keep whatever the addiction is in their life to some degree and not let it go completely, but avoid the consequence. So it looks
Mm,
like, let me just drink beer and not hard liquor. Let me
mm,
just drink on the weekend. I've got a rule for myself now that I will only drink after 6 and no more than 3 at a time. I'm only going to spend $1,000 a month on cocaine. It's some version of cutting it back.
mhm.
Sometimes it looks like, well, I've got a problem with this substance, but this one doesn't cause me a problem. I'll stop doing this one, but I'll keep doing that one. And when you see that as the loved one, it's mega frustrating because you're like, that's not gonna work. And it's not. I'm just gonna tell you it's not, right? But there's no way to get someone out of bargaining other than to let them do it. You can't skip the stage, but you can speed it up.
Mm,
You'll totally relate to this, Margaret. It's like if I have a client come to me and they'll say, well, I think, my wife thinks I'm an alcoholic, but she's crazy. She thinks that because her daddy was alcoholic. She thinks everyone's alcoholic. That's what they're going to tell me. And
right.
then they're like, okay, I do drink too much. I probably need to cut it back. But it's really just when I drink vodka. That's when the problem is. As long as I stick to beer, I don't even get drunk and I'll be fine. That's what they'll say to me.
Yep.
And I'll say, I agree. I think that if you could cut it back to beer and it was no more than this, what you're saying, I think that would make things a lot better. Let's put that on your treatment plan. Let's do it, right?
Okay.
And I'll say that. Now, I might say some people are able to do that, but they end up learning it's so freaking much work, it's not even worth it because they
Mm,
have to constantly be thinking about it. And other people find that they can do it sometimes, but then the dam breaks and then bad things keep happening. So I
mm,
might plant a seed in there that say, this could happen. And then I'll say, but everybody's different and you're the best. Let's
mm.
try it. And hey, if it don't work, it's cool because we got plan B, C, D. Don't you worry. We're going to solve this one way or the other.
Okay.
And so it's about letting someone do that. And they'll need to do these bargains. There'll be a bunch of them and they'll have to do them more than once. So when you see these bargainings, instead of feeling furious and saying, they always say they're going to change and they never do it and they're just lying to me and they're manipulating me, what you've got to really understand is they're manipulating themselves. Yeah, they're lying to you, but they're really lying to themselves because they truly think that they're going to be able to do this, right? And we have to let people, someone's not going to totally give this up until they've tried all the different loopholes they can think of to manage it, is sort of the recovery word for it. So when you see that, if you understand that, you'll be less angry and frustrated. Because when I see that, I literally, in my mind, there's a list of bargains, and I'm like, check, check, because I know we got to get to the bottom of that list. So I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
excited. Let's do it. Like
Mhm.
let's do it quickly
All right. So
because
it's
now
to be
you're speeding that
expected.
up. Hmm.
Yeah. You're speeding
And
it up.
if it's addiction, because sometimes people will say, well, they think they're fine if they drink a case of beer. And here's what I say: it doesn't matter what limit they put on it. If it's addiction, they will cross it because they just will.
Mhm.
So
That's
don't
right.
even worry about it. In fact, whatever they tell you, give them a little more. So if they say, I'm not gonna, drink more than 3, and you say, well, yeah, let's say, well, let's put 4 or 5 on it. Because when they cross that line and you've given them all the room in the world, it's really clear to them, right?
Mm,
So you take whatever they give you and maybe even just add a little to it so that it's super clear to that person, not you.
mm,
If you say, I think it would be fine if you didn't have more than 2 glasses of wine, and they break that rule, it's not going to mean anything to them because they didn't really think that was reasonable anyway. So it's not
exactly.
going to get their attention. So it has to be theirs, and you want to give them every inch, right? So
Mm,
that they can see, dang, I messed that up, or that's not working, or yeah, that worked for 2 days and then it didn't. That's what we're trying to
mm,
get the learning process to happen.
mm. And to your point, the angrier we are, which is understandable, the more we share that anger,
Valid emotion.
very valid, the more we express that, the less learning is likely to happen. So there's a lot of having, to your point, bite your lip, bite your tongue,
Hmm.
which can be so difficult, which is why finding somebody who can be your support
Hmm.
is really imperative. It's not just about taking care of that person. That's
Right.
important. I get that. But boy, this is hard. And
Yes.
we are going to have a lot of feelings. So, finding somebody going to Al-Anon,
Hmm.
Families Anonymous, something, getting your own counselor, something where
Right.
you have a place to offload and just get some perspective and see how are other
Yes.
people handling these same situations. They say, sister, that is exactly what happened in my house last week. This happens. This is what I did. It may or may
Hmm.
not be right for you,
Hmm.
but take what you want. So
Right.
having support for themselves, because yes, it is understandable. And this is a tongue biting, lip biting.
Oh, it's a lot of resisting. It really
Yeah.
is a lot of resisting. You know how they say when you're in school and you take a test, go with your first thought? I say on
Uh-huh.
this issue, never go with your first thought. In
That's
my head, the first thought is always something sassy, something smart alecky. That's the first one. I just let that one pass and say, hello, just pass right by. And then wait
That's
for the second or third one. Do not go with your first thought because it won't be the right one.
cool. Well, so would you, Amber, be one of those people who folks can contact and you can support them regardless of which side of the addiction they're on?
Absolutely. Yes. And we have a huge YouTube channel that you can go to, and it
Yeah.
goes into detail into all of this. There's like 1,000 videos on the channel. So it is
Oh,
free, and it's such a great place to start from. And then if you needed some
yeah.
more one-on-one help, we'll be glad to help you. But that's a really good place to start, and it won't cost you
Mm.
anything. And you can access it from anywhere.
This is Hope for Families Recovery Consultants. And you're saying we. Who is we?
Well, I have a team of people. I have two other counselors who work with us. I historically have worked with the person who has an addiction. They historically have worked with, one of them tends to work with parents and one of them tends to work with spouses. Basically, they see the family members and we work together as a team. We call it lawyering.
Mm.
Everybody gets an advocate. It's my job to see things from the addicted person's point of view, which is why a lot of my content is about helping families understand here's what this person's thinking. When you say
Mm.
this, they think this. When you say that, they're going to think that, like, but most of the time, the other two counselors are so good at like understanding your feelings because I'm like a defense attorney. I feel
Love it.
guilty about it all the time because I'm like, these people do not deserve it. And I'm like telling you to be nicer to them and they have not been nice to you. And I feel guilty about it. I'm just telling you because I know it works. And you
Exactly.
need somebody that can really like advocate for you too. So that's why we have a team.
Mm. I love that. That's amazing. So, if folks wanted to connect with you,
Hmm.
wanted to learn more, they can go to Amber Hollingsworth. They can go to Hope for Families Recovery Consultants on YouTube. I'm assuming you have a website also. What's the best way to
Well,
get?
the website is Hope for Families Recovery Center, but the YouTube has kind of a crazy name. It's called Put the Shovel Down. And that's an old recovery saying, and it means you hit your bottom when you put your shovel down, so quit digging. Because my goal is to help people figure this out before they hit bottom, before they lose everything, burn every bridge, ruin everything. And we can do this, no need to go all there. We're going to put the shovel down. So that's the
Oh, I
YouTube
love
channel.
that. All right, folks. So you want to learn more about this? This is Amber is speaking your language, which I think there's a lot of wisdom in this. Put your shovel down. I love
That's
that.
right.
That's great. And the best way for them to connect with you would be the website?
Yeah, the website you can find all of our contacts, our emails, our services. There's
Or,
YouTube. And if you put my name in, we of course we have all this. I'll come up. You'll find me.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, not millions of Amber Hollingsworths out there. That's
If you
probably a
put
good.
Amber addiction, I'll come up there.
Okay,
You
Amber.
put the Amber, that shovel lady, something about a
Yeah,
shovel, I'll
right.
come up there.
It will come up.
Yeah.
Well, folks, please do connect with Amber Hollingsworth and the folks at Hope for Families Recovery Consultants. This is great content. Like I said, I've been doing this since the 80s, and this is really good. These are good nuggets of gold. So please connect with them. So lovely to have this conversation with you, Amber. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everybody.
And thank you, folks, for joining us. Thanks for listening. We look forward to having you back next time. Be well.